One of the things we do really well is to invite our leaders to stop, to pause and be with Jesus, to listen to his voice, and to receive vision and get clarity on our calling. And so 2 years ago, I was invited to do just that, to stop for a moment and listen. And when I listened to the voice of Jesus, he gave me a vision that was truly remarkable and has shaped me in some significant ways. And I'd love to share that vision with you this morning. So I was standing outside the city of Pamplona, Spain, and I was overlooking the city. And I could see the city streets full of people, bustling and moving, going about their lives. And it was a beautiful picture. And then my perspective shifted, and I looked next to me. And next to me was a fence, and inside of the fence was a herd of wild bulls. These were massive creatures, full of raw and rugged power. They were restless. They were ready to run. And I turned again, and I saw my hand resting on the latch of the gate. And I heard the Spirit speak. He said, "Open the gate. Let them run free." Most of you probably don't know this, but a few years back, Sam Metcalf wrote a book. And the good news is that Sam's book has done a lot of good. It's actually had significant impact in many leaders' lives, especially by identifying and affirming apostolic leaders who were longing to serve shoulder to shoulder with others who share their vision, their passion, their gifting. He gave them permission to find the teams and structures that would allow them to thrive, that would help them to run free. But he also left them with a question, a lingering question that I actually don't think his book fully answered. Let me explain. In his book, Sam gave us a picture of two forms of the global church, two expressions, modal and sodal, the church local and the church mobile, working in concert together to see the kingdom of God advance into all the earth. He wrote, "The evidence from history is abundant that whenever these two structures work cooperatively and interdependently, the Christian movement thrives and moves forward." So if the Christian movement advances when the global church runs with both feet, how do those feet run together? How do we cooperate and collaborate with the other expressions of the global church? That is the question he left us with. And I'm convinced that this vision Jesus gave to me, this vision of Pamplona, Spain, and that herd of wild bulls, is one answer to that question. You see, my vision and my calling is all about mobilization. It's about unleashing leaders who are ready to run. And mobilization is simply setting those leaders free, allowing them to move forward, putting them into motion. It's taking the potential kingdom energy that lives within men and women of God and unleashing it into kinetic kingdom expansion and impact. Now you may be thinking, well, I do this. I've spent years of my life in ministry investing in and empowering leaders. in my context. And you have done well to do so. But mobilization is also unleashing leaders into the spaces and amongst the people that are not our own. It's releasing leaders where you aren't primarily focused. It's about reaching beyond your context, beyond your culture, beyond your city, to take part in a global vision, a calling broader than yours alone. We who are apostolic leaders, sent ones, are called to be senders as well. It's part of the game. It's part of the job. It's part of what God is asking of us. As Paul writes to the church at Rome, how then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? If we truly long to see a stampede of gospel movements sprinting across the globe, we must endeavor to open the gates. Which brings me back to these two structures in Sam's book and beyond the local church. After reading Sam's book, I drew this diagram of the intersection between these two forms of church, the modal and sodal. And I began asking the question, what lives here in the middle? How can we cooperate with the expressions of church that are not our own? And here's what I've discovered. The space where sodalities and modalities intersect, where local churches and missions organizations come together, is a mobilization playground. Now, there are other things that happen in that space, to be sure. But it is there where leaders who are on the cusp of all that God is inviting them to be and do are waiting and waiting for us. And in that space, we have the unique opportunity to invest in wild bulls who are ready to run free. And it is in this space that the gates reside. So what are these gates? What are the obstacles that presently hold back the tide of apostolic energy that Jesus is waiting to unleash upon the earth? The first gate is uncertainty. Many leaders I talk with simply lack clarity about what God is asking them to be and do. And I'm convinced such uncertainty comes from an inability to truly be with Jesus. They don't know how to hear his voice. They don't know how to sit at his feet and to know they've heard his words to them. The whats, the whens, the wheres, the with whoms of their calling remain unclear because they cannot hear the Father's words. So those on the front lines of God's kingdom work must be able to respond to the Spirit's voice wherever he may lead. But they cannot follow the words of someone they cannot hear. So uncertainty. The second gate is isolation. It's a lack of connection to those who have gone before. In fact, many of us in this room would not be here had not a mentor or missionary come alongside you and fanned the flame of apostolic passion and invited you to join them on the field. They said, "Come with me, and I'll show you how to step into all that God is asking of you." Seeing and tasting the reality of what God is doing in the other corners of the world can awaken those God is raising up to continue the mission we are in the midst of beginning. But how will they see? How will they taste if we do not give part of our breath to blowing on the spark of apostolic passion that now lives within them? And the third gate is complacency. I see this so much. Younger leaders especially struggle to launch out of fear of missing out on what is yet unknown or undiscovered. Contentedness to wait and see. It breeds inaction and stagnancy. Why commit to something that requires sacrifice when something a little better looms just over the horizon? But what these leaders need is someone to challenge them. They need you and me to call out the dormant gifts and untapped potential that lives within them, that's waiting to be activated. We must be attentive to those moments when the Spirit is asking us to be a prophetic voice to them, to exhort them to step out, to take the step of faith rather than to wait and weigh their options. So, my challenge to you this morning is to be men and women who open the gates. Invite those around you to the feet of Jesus and teach them to listen to his voice. Spend time with any who are hungry to experience a taste of the radical lives you now live. And be alert. Be ready to challenge them. Those that God is calling to live an audacious and impossible dream. Because it is your voice of prophetic exhortation that is needed for such dreams to become kingdom realities. Give some of your time and some of your energy and passion to find others who are ready to run. Even if they aren't headed to your context, to your city, to your culture. Find them and let them run free. Some will run with zeal into missions, extending God's kingdom work into distant lands where the gospel has yet to flourish. And some will rise up to lead in spaces where the church is already established, bringing new life to communities of believers desperate to see their cities transformed for God. But no matter where they go or what God calls them to do, mobilizing others is the heart of our mission. It is critical to our success. Because when we unleash leaders into every corner of the kingdom, the church of Jesus Christ runs with both feet. And it is then that we can look forward to a day when every tribe and tongue and nation worships together at the feet of Jesus.